This is General Biology 1, and today we're going to discuss Lesson 5, which is cell membrane, the gateway into the cell. Also, we're going to discuss the following: the parts of the cell membrane, the functions of the cell membrane, and as expected at the end of this lesson, you are about to create an analogy presenting the parts and functions of the cell membrane. So let us proceed with our discussion about the structure and the components of the cell membrane. So, have you ever eaten a siomai? So I hope that you are all familiar what siomai is. So I have here a photo of siomai on the left side of your screen right now. So a siomai is composed of course, it's meat, usually a ground pork together with a shrimp sometimes, or yung iba naman kung ano yung available na filling ng kanilang siomai. But we're not actually going to focus on the contents of the siomai itself. But though we're able to tackle its similarities, or should I say yung yung kanyang pinagkaparehas sa cell. So basically yung contents ng siomai, that those are the contents of the cell as well. But we're going to focus more on the wrapper of the siomai. Since our lesson is about the cell membrane, which is kinda considered as the wrapper of the cell. Okay? So imagine that the siomai without a wrapper, so imagine niyo mawawasak, o kumbaga sasabog yung nilalaman nung siomai na yon. So the same with the cell, kung wala ka nung cell membrane, lahat ng parts ng cell mo nakakalat yan. So wala siyang organization na masasabi. Okay? So do not also be confused. Cell membrane is also sometimes called as the plasma membrane. Okay? So also cell membrane is, what do you call this, is also appears like a ham sandwich. Paano siya naging ham sandwich? Kung papansin niyo kasi, di ba, sabi sa definition dyan, or later on malalaman natin, or sa characteristics ng cell membrane is a double layer of phospholipids. Okay? So kung sa ham sandwich, kumbaga this is your first layer, and then you will have another layer sa gawin na to. Okay? And then in between itong part na to, so there are other parts. So you have there the protein molecules, the phospholipids, and so forth and so on. Okay? So also, the cell membrane is considered as, or pictured as, fluid mosaic model. Bakit kaya sa tinawag na fluid mosaic model? It's because it is fluid. It becomes fluidity. Its characteristics because of its molecules are constantly moving. So pag fluid, wala namang fluid na stagnant, or should I say solid, something like that. So pag sinabi nating fluid, so it is expected that its contents or that particular part is always moving or constantly moving. So the phospholipid molecules move sideways within the membrane. So a particular cell, so siyempre kung ang cell mo ay round, most likely that is an animal cell. So kung medyo boxy yan, that is a plant cell. Now, cell membrane, so siyempre it covers the entire cell. So kung ito yung buong cell mo, andyan yung mga organelles mo sa loob. Okay? So it moves. So later on, malalaman natin paano ba nag-move yung cell membrane, paano ba siya naging constantly moving at tinatawag. So mamaya dun sa functions of the cell membrane. Okay? So sige. Let's go first to the function of the cell membrane before we proceed dun sa mismong part niya. Okay. So, functions of the cell membrane includes the following. So, it serves as boundary between and outside the environment and inside of the cell. Later on, you will know, pag di-discuss ko na itong part na to mamaya. Okay? Another function is, it gives shape and form of the cell. So, kung babalikan natin yung kanina, so if it is round, usually, animal cell yun. If it is boxy or rectangular in shape, baka plant cell yun. So, more likely. So, it gives shape. So, circular for animal cells and rectangular or square sometimes in plant cells. Okay. Another function of the cell membrane is connects one cell to another cell or to its adjacent cells. So, paano kaya siya nagko-connect? Siyempre, alam naman natin na dikit-dikit ang cells within a particular part of our body or yung buong katawan natin. So, dikit-dikit sila. So, meron niyang connection in between. Okay? Also, ito yung sinasabi ko, aside from the cell membrane is fluid or constantly moving, number 4, it may serve as an organ of locomotion, but in not all cells hindi katulad ng sa animal and plant cell. For example, specific example here is amoeba and amoeba. Ano ba kasing meron sa amoeba? So, I will try to draw. So, ang amoeba kasi wala siyang specific shape niya. So, let's say for example, this is an amoeba. And of course, meron niyang different parts sa loob ng kanyang cell. Okay? Now, ang amoeba, yung pinaka-membrane niya nito sa labas. So, may tinatawag kasing false feet. Ano? So, false feet. Ano ba yung false feet or pseudopod or pseudopodia? Pag sinabing pseudo or false feet, wait lang it acts like a feet, kaya lang hindi siya yung regular na feet or regular part for movement. So, kung babalik tayo dito, so imagine niyo na lang napakaganda kong drawing ng amoeba. It moves based on the movement of the entire cell itself. So, isang single cell yan. So, kung mapapansin nyo, mag-move yan gamit yung kanyang part. For example, itong part na to, mag-move yan dito, and the rest, susunod. Okay? So, ang tawag sa part na to is, it could be called as the false feet or the pseudopod ng amoeba. So, kung mapapansin mo, that particular membrane acts as a form of its locomotion. Okay? So, that is for movement. But not all cell types can do the same as amoeba can do. Okay? So, next is, a cell's plasma membrane defines the cell, of course. So, outlines its borders and determines the nature of its interaction with its environment. Cells exclude some substances, take in others, eliminate others. So, let's go back to the photo of the cell membrane. So, ito yung pinaka-cell membrane. So, ginawa ko yung colored para mas makita natin na maganda. Okay? So, a cell membrane is double layer of phospholipids. Pag sinabing double layer, saan yung layer na yon? So, ito yung unang layer. Tingnan sa gitna ito ha. So, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw a straight line. Yes. Yan. Okay? So, itong unang part na to, that is your first layer. And the second one is this. Itong part na yan. So, this is your second layer. Okay? So, layer. So, kaya sa tinawag na bi-layer. Bi meaning two layers. Bi. Okay? Now, lipid bilayer because it has two two layers of phospholipids. Sabi kanina, nung binasa ko, di ba, it allows materials, tama ba? It allows substances to take in and exclude or eliminate others. A cell membrane is said to be semi-permeable membrane, meaning semi-permeable, there are materials that can pass through, but sometimes there are other materials that cannot pass through dahil it's either siya ay masyadong malaki yung particle niya, or hindi siya totally kailangan nung cell, or maaring yun ay pathogen or other microorganisms that may cause diseases. Okay, semi-permeable, some materials can pass through but not all materials can. So semi, so hindi lahat pwedeng papasukin. Okay, papansin niyo, so a cell membrane has different parts, di ba nabanggit kanina, but yun nasa picture natin. So we have the protein molecule, we also have the protein channels, and we have these lipids. Ang tawag sa individual na yan, mamaya I will zoom in, ang tawag sa individual na yan ay lipids. Okay, so it has parts, I will also discuss later. And for this section of the cell membrane, papansin niyo, so this is the outside of the cell. So considering the outside and then considering also the inside of the cell. So the inside of the cell, where can you be able to find the different organelles such as your mitochondrion, your lysosomes and other parts of the cell, okay? Your nucleus and others. Now, kung sa outside yan, syempre, 'di ba sabi sa kanina sa function, it connects with other cells. So basically, may kadikit yan. So kaya 'di ba ang cell naman usually dikit-dikit siya. May kadikit yan, so they have connection para makapag-communicate yung dalawang cell. Okay, so andyan din yon sa parts na yan. I forgot to mention the carbon chain sa part ng cell membrane. So they can be able to communicate through what? Through chemical signals. So hindi naman natin ganun masyadong ihihimayin pa kung paano nagkakaroon ng transmittal of information from one cell to another. So it will require a lot of time for us. Okay, so going back, as I was saying, so yun nga, the outside and the inside of the cell. Now let us zoom in with the one major part of the cell membrane, which is the lipids. Ayan. Kung mapapansin niyo, it has basically two parts. Okay, we have the head and we have the tail. We have the head and we have the tail. So pag dinrawing ko ulit yan, ayan, ganyan lang siya kasimple. Since double layer yan, ganyan na itsura niya. Okay, so ibig sabihin dalawang layer siya ng maraming lipids. Okay, now yung head na tinutukoy na to is said to be hydrophilic. Pag sinabi niyong hydrophilic, hydro means water, philic means loving. So therefore, the head of the lipids are water-loving molecules. So they love water. But in contrary, the tail is said to be hydrophobic. Hydro means water, phobic means fear. So hydrophobic, fear in water. Okay po. So what else? So also the head is said to be the polar head, and the tail is said to be the non-polar tail. So the polar group, if you can see in this portion, ito yon, so may pinaka main na ulo niya. We also have the phosphate group in this part, phosphate, and the glycerol, and then in this tail part we have the different fatty acids. So yun yung pinaka basic parts ng lipids sa cell membrane. Okay, so that is for the part. So let's go back to this portion. So in addition, the surface of the plasma membrane carries markers that allow cells to recognize one another and plays a vital role for tissue and organ formation during early development and later in self versus non-self distinction in the immune response. So, di ba sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, so it has a vital role in tissue formation. Tissue, pag sinabi natin tissue, ito na yung composition of difference of two or more cells, tissue. Okay, and organs, so I hope you're all familiar with organization o yung hierarchy of life. Sulat ko na. Amok to obsebe. Wala ito dyan sa inyong note. So what does it stands for? So we have for A, atom, M, molecules, O, organelles, C, cells, T, tissues. Then we have organs, organ system, organism, population, community, ecosystem, biosphere, and earth. So that is the so-called the hierarchy of life, just to inform you. Okay, so that is basically the function of the cell membrane and its parts. Now, on this table, the components and function of the cell membrane in a typical animal cell. So we are focusing actually on animal cell, but basically the same function, almost the same function with the plant cells. Okay? Ang kaibahan lang kasi sa plant cells, meron pa siyang cell wall which is thicker than the usual cell membrane in an animal cell. Though meron pa ring cell membrane doon, pero meron lang siya, ang plant cell ay meron lang cell wall sa outer part. Okay? So we have the component phospholipids. So what is function or feature? Main fabric of the membrane. Okay, cholesterol maintains integrity and fluidity of the plasma membrane. Ay, meron po palang cholesterol sa plasma membrane. Yes, of course. Hindi naman pwedeng mawala yun. Okay, integral proteins, for example, integrins. So, integral proteins, ang example niya na integrins. So, para saan siya? So, it transports substances through the membrane. Kung papalikan natin yung part ng cell, kaya siya merong mga protein molecules and we have the protein channels as well. Okay, going back. Also, receptor function. So, receptor, it accepts or depende kung ano yung signal na ibibigay. Cell adhesion. You also have structural support for the cell. And we have the peripheral proteins, again another protein, and that is for cell recognition. 'Di ba nabanggit kanina sa function ng cell membrane? Let us go back. Asan na ba 'yun? Yung sinabi kanina na ito, formation during early development and later self versus non-self distinction. Nag-act yun as recognizing agent or para ma-recognize na yung papasok na isang material doon sa loob ng cell. So, if that particular material ay hindi na-recognize ng iyong cell membrane, kaya tinawag na semi-permeable as well, hindi niya papayagang makapasok lahat yon. Okay? Another part is the carbohydrates, so components of glycoproteins and glycolipids. So again, for cell recognition and effective interaction with the aqueous environment. Okay po. So that is for the parts and function or feature of the cell membrane. Okay. Among the most sophisticated functions of the plasma membrane is the ability to transmit signals. I'm going to highlight transmit signals by means of complex integral proteins known as receptors. Okay, so it transmits signals. Saan niya tinatransmit yan? Siyempre, sa different parts of the cell, sa different parts of the body, there is connection between two cells. Okay, so yung sinabi ko sa inyo kanina. So they act also as both receivers of extracellular inputs. Extracellular inputs, syempre you have one cell then communicating to another cell. Inputs in as activators of intracellular processes. So these membrane receptors provide extracellular attachment sites for effectors like, I'm also going to highlight hormones and growth factors. They activate intracellular response cascades when their effectors are bound. Occasionally, receptors are hijacked by viruses. Like, for example, the HIV. Okay, that use them to gain entry into the cell. Ito yung di ba sabi niyo po kanina that a cell membrane allows not all materials to pass through. Yung mga HIV for example or yan sa virus, nag-a-alter kasi sila, kumbaga dinadaya nila yung mga receptors na yun para makapasok sila. Okay? So kumbaga it's like nanadaya nga So it's like kokopihin ko yung kailangan ng cell na to para makapasok ako, or what code is needed para makapasok ako in this particular cell. So ganun yung naging actions ng mga invasive organisms, like for example this virus HIV. So they gain entry into the cell because they hijacked the receptors. Kumbaga dinaya or inalter nila yung receptor, or basta they change something or they get something na pag nadikit sila dun sa receptor, they will be allowed to pass through because na-gain nila o nakuha nila yung code para makadaan. So the cell membrane will allow them to enter. Okay? So I hope you understand the function and parts of the cell membrane. Ngayon, kung igagawa natin to ng you have the activity to nagagawa niyo ng analogy, di ba? So I would like you to think of another analogy since I'm going to give you this. For example, that's why the title of our lesson is Gateway into the Cell, from the term gate. So what it does, so basically the cell membrane acts like a gate in a compound, for example. So gate yan, so imagine niyo na lang na ano bang ginagawa kasi ng gate or fence or bakod? So it protects what's inside the fence or the bakod, tama ba? So ganoon na siya kasimple. So it is for protection, and it allows materials to pass through. So basically nasa intindi nyo na lang, basta it acts like a gate, it acts like a fence that protects whatever is inside that gated environment, for example. Okay, so for the activities, so ito activity number 1, you're just simply going to find and list. So kung masipag kayo, kopyahin nyo ng buo yan. Pero I won't suggest, don't worry, I won't suggest that you need to copy the entire letters. Find and list. Halimbawa, nakita mo na isang hinahanap, isulat mo na lang. Halimbawa, nakita mo yung ano ba nakita? Halimbawa, nakita mo yung Kia, pero hindi yan part. Nakita mo lang, sulat mo na lang Kia. Find and list. Hindi ko naman sinabing copy the letters and then tsaka mo bilugan. Wala naman eh. So, find and list. So, you have the list. Then next. Okay? That's it. For activity number 2, ito, you have to copy this. Copy and complete the crossword. So, you're going to copy the boxes. Going to copy this. Kung paano siya nagawa. Then, you're going now to identify kung ano hinahanap. Okay? You're going to identify. Nandyan naman lahat yon sa inyong handouts or sa inyong module. For activity number 3, ito yung sinasabi ko that you're going to create your own analogy of the function of the cell membrane. Take note of this, highlighting its important parts and function. You have to highlight the parts. Di ba gumawa kayo ng analogy nyo? Anong part yung nagsiserve as the gate, for example, anong part yung nagsiserve as the fence, at ano yung function ng gate at ng fence, just like that. So you may use creative languages or picture analogy. So pwede po yung sulat lang, yes, kung ikaw ay creative writer, or pwede naman picture analogy. Picture, paano po yan? Pwede po bang drawing? Pwede. Pwede po bang kukuha kami ng picture at ididikit? Pwede po. So, it's all up to you. As long as I will be able to see the analogy, pag sinabing analogy, kung paano nagamit yung parts and function, paano nagamit yung parts and function ng cell membrane. Okay? So, that is for activity number 3. So, and just answer the wrap-up activity for additional points. And that is for this lesson 5. I hope you learned something today. Thank you.